honestly don't think you should buy your project car based on the genre.
What I realized is that when I took my stock E36 to do this, it fucking performed terribly.
That is the epitome of the f it up right there. It's
Yeah.
like, what's up, crew? Welcome to another episode of Prjct.Pod, a podcast about cars, because I freaking love them. In this episode, Justin and I talk about a recent video uploaded by BigTime, one of the bigger YouTube channels for cars, and they uploaded a sort of buyer's guide or considerations you should have before buying your first project car. For the most part, Justin and I agree on most of the points that they made, but we had some constructive criticisms and ultimately provided our thoughts on what we think would be number one top of mind when you're going to look for your first project car. So enjoy. All right, episode 8, I think. I got a lotto ticket. Back on it.
Come on, fucking hit.
Back at it again.
For what, $40 million?
I did not get the Powerball, so we're not getting a jackpot. God damn it. I got 4.
We're poor again.
2 numbers. Nope. I need 3 numbers at least.
I think my light is actually dying. Hold on, let me put this thing in real quick.
Prjct.Garage, where we fuck it up, not just on the cars. Fuck it up. I think my camera battery is probably going to die in the middle of this thing.
Started recording, did not have everything set up.
Anyways.
Now we have the lighting
kind
of there.
So in the YouTube space, you've got some big players and all of them sort of have their own dynamics, which I actually want to do an episode like that one of these days, which is car YouTube channels. Like let's dive into them. The only issue with that is you don't watch enough content on YouTube's, so we need to get you at least looking at some of them.
Well, I do watch YouTube content, relating to cars, but it's mostly like how-to videos.
Yeah.
And really revolving around like the E36 and what I'm trying to do with my car. So I try to look up stuff that's similar to what I'm doing for my car, as far as the turbo build or the bottom end rebuild. And I look at it that way. I don't look at people's watch my, which is really ironic because this is what we're creating this content of look at my build, look what all the things that I've done to it. I don't watch that shit. I don't care.
It's depressing for you.
Yeah, it's super depressing.
I mean, it's depressing to me too. It's like, oh, look how easy it was for them to drop an engine in and get it started. And I'm like, well, I can't figure it out for 4 years.
It's not even that. I'm looking at this shit. And I'm like, I can do everything that's in this video. I don't have the money to do this.
And the money.
That's depressing as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, well, speaking of which, one of the most recent new YouTube channels is BigTime, which they started coming from Donut. I would say it's not just that. Those two are probably the 2 best that came out of Donut, other than Mr. Humphrey, Mopow.
I think Humphreys was really the face of Donut in his character.
Yeah.
But as far as technicality and content creation revolving around cars, it's definitely the dudes from BigTime,
Job and Jeremiah, which is actually good context for the rest of this conversation, because what we're going to do is one of their most recent videos, if not their last video when this goes up, is talking about project cars. And at first I thought it was strictly around buying, how to buy, or not how to buy, the considerations when getting your first project car, but that was just a segment of it, and we're going to focus on that segment. The rest of it was how to buy a project car, which was going on Marketplace and sniffing out the crazy stuff. So that's good context because those two are so technical, and I wonder if that's why some of the points we might bring up is we do similarly want to have that as an aspect of this channel, right? We talked about having a giveaway in a way that's not, here's the perfectly set up Porsche or Evo or some crazy supercar that you're not going to really be able to do anything with. Our hope is to do the complete opposite, which is here's a well-running but old E46 or 240SX, and then here's a couple parts that you can throw on yourself and get yourself into the project car world. So it was interesting to see them throw up a video that was very much in line with that, which was here's our next project car, and here's the things we thought about. So I figure we dive in and talk about sort of these key points. Now, I'm not going to lie, full transparency, and anybody who's watching this, I ripped the BigTime video off of YouTube. I put it into a transcription software. I took that transcript and I put it in ChatGPT, and then it gave me the top talking points around that specific segment, which is the considerations you should have before and getting your first project car. So this first one, and they're all quotes, which is interesting, but we've learned that it's more of an art form by screwing it up, or in Prjct.Garage's terms, fuck
it up. Fuck up.
Fuck up. And it's like the process of buying a project car isn't cut and dry. It's something you learn by making mistakes. And I originally thought we would watch this and do like a live reaction, but I figured rather than do that, we're just going to talk about these points. And then I'll leave the link down below for anybody who hasn't seen that video, which I think would be slightly impossible if you're watching this and haven't watched that yet. But yeah, so is it the right way to buy your first project car, or do you just have to mess up a few times? Like, that's actually, here's where I would go with this. Because they do say like there's a lot of considerations, but is it possible to get the perfect project car the first time?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
No, absolutely. And when you asked me to watch that video and like kind of if I had any critiques, and I told you like, yeah, I do have critiques of the video. They're petty as fuck, but I think they really
are. Fucker.
And I'm sorry, Job and Jeremiah, if I ever meet you, I love your guys' content. I actually do watch their videos fairly consistently. I do like their content. They're one of the few people on YouTube that I'll go and watch.
All right, nice part out of the way.
Yeah, but the considerations that they put forward on buying your first project car, I don't necessarily agree with. They are good points. They are good things to consider. But as somebody who did buy a fairly decent first project car and fucked it up, like the car itself was a really good car, a really good first car to work on. It was a inline four, front wheel drive, manual, fly-by-wire, base model Eclipse. The easiest you can get to pretty much working on a car as far as technicality. Yeah. I would say the easier version of that was to get like the earlier model Eclipse. So it's an OBD1, less sensors to deal with. But realistically, like I fucked that car up because of my lack of knowledge, not because it wasn't a good starting project car. And a lot of their basis was I feel like they were coming from an understanding of like, I already have project cars, so what's my next one? Like they were putting like budget in there. Like, I'm sorry, no, your first project car, you're not budgeting to buy a car and having money left over for parts. That's not happening because you're not finishing that car with whatever money you have. You're 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old, kid. Maybe you're getting into project cars a little later and you have a little bit more money strapped. Get the best car you can with the money you have, and then you're going to build it over time. Yeah. A paycheck here, a paycheck there. You save up for a couple parts. That is your project car. That's how project cars really are. Is you save up money after you buy it. You save up money to put another part on. You're not out the gate buying a shit ton of parts after you buy the car. That's not how that works.
I mean, that's a really good point because it's like this idea of making mistakes. It's definitely a great sentiment when you start working on a car and you already have that car and you're able to wrench on it. You have the tools. I think maybe what's happening is it's like it's like the difference between an MCU movie and a Marvel comic series. A lot of things are missing because you have to make this one big movie, but there's a whole like lore in a set of comics that you're missing. And maybe they just tried to fit in that 20 minutes, 22 minutes, their recommendations. And their base recommendations was, you said budget. They say genre, difficulty, and aftermarket support, which two of those we've already talked about. Aftermarket support is super important because if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to wrench on the car. And then difficulty, it's sort of like your confidence level getting into this. But like you said, if you're going for your very first project car, and let's say budget's not even the question, like we're not worried about how much it's going to cost or if you need to go budget friendly. If you get a car, rich or not, and you fuck it up right away, like that's going to suck. Or in their example, the end of the video, they get a freaking clapped out Mustang, like a what is it?
Yeah, it was a Fox body.
Yeah, Fox body, and like
got a Fox body Mustang.
Cool car, but I feel like that's going to be a tough one to work on. They have the budget,
Well,
obviously.
so in one of our episodes, remember we were talking about engine swaps?
Yeah.
That's the exact fucking car that I'm talking about that people rip out the V8 for and do like a fucking cheap
you can
LS
shovel out
swap
car.
thing, right? Like it's a LS clone swap where you get it for like a quarter of the price, but you still almost get to the horsepower gain,
like the Jay-Z
horsepower gold.
the Jay-Z to an S52 type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So that's interesting. So I think, that's to sort of round off that point. Especially if you're on a budget, if you're trying to find your way into project cars, you probably should, think about budget for sure. Like, what can you
absolutely.
afford? But within that budget, it should be, what can I get that's going to run, that I can enjoy, that if I go to do something in the engine, I'm not going to fuck it up right away.
Yeah.
Because you obviously want to make mistakes, but you also want, like, technically my first project car is the M3. It doesn't run anymore. Luckily, I have budget and I was able to, snag myself some other things going on here. But
so that kind of flows into my petty, like the petty things that I had about this video, right? And again, I'm sorry, Job and Jeremiah, love your shit, but when they had their list, it was genre, budget,
difficulty, and aftermarket,
right? Budget and aftermarket, they flow hand in hand. I'm sorry, any project car that you're getting off a budget is going to have aftermarket support. Unless you're buying a crazy ass expensive car or a brand new car, right? There's going to be aftermarket support for pretty much every budget. You look at Civics, Celicas, Integras, Eclipses, Evos aren't budget, but even if you get an Evo,
you get a rolling chassis for a budget.
Yeah, those Mustangs. Pretty much every car has within that, $500 to $6,000 range will have aftermarket support. If you are buying something that is crazy expensive, you have the fucking money to custom fab it. Sorry, I'm putting this out there right now. You have the money. So don't worry about aftermarket support if you're buying like a really expensive car because you can afford to custom fab shit. But those two kind of the budget and the aftermarket go hand in hand. There's pretty much aftermarket for every car out there that you're building. There is an entire, and again, I'm bringing the Geo Metro back into this bitch, right? Because I want to build this fucking car. Geo Metros. Not a lot of people know about this car. It's an early 90s car. It's a three banger. Nobody builds these cars.
No.
There is a giant aftermarket support like section for this car.
I thought it was going to be a big one.
Yeah, it's not like as grand as like a Civic or some of the bigger name cars, but there is a lot of support for it. There's a lot of things you can do. There are coilovers for it. There are, strut bars. There's a lot for that car. And it's not a really well-known car. So I don't feel like really you have to worry too much about aftermarket support because there's going to be some, and especially when you're first starting out, the aftermarket support that you're going to get for a majority of these cars are really going to be kind of vanity pieces, right? You're not going to get, crazy bottom end rebuilt engines, right? You're not going to look for forged internals for that car because you don't know how to do that stuff yet. Yeah. And if you do, why are you buying that car?
Yeah.
Like, what you're getting into, right?
This is true.
But all like the basic stuff like coilovers, like an intake, like a short shifter, those types of aftermarket parts are readily available in a lot of cars, if not all of them at this point. I haven't found a car yet that hasn't had at least some sort of base aftermarket support for them.
Yeah.
That being said, when you do look for a car, I would say instead of having aftermarket support there, community support, I think is more important than aftermarket support.
Because then what you're going to go in and buy, right?
Yeah.
You know what parts have successfully been easy to install.
Yeah.
Or you can actually get a gauge.
Yeah, exactly. I would say like if you're looking for a car, right, and you start kind of going down those lists, go look for forums for that type of car, right? See how active the forums are. See if people are posting every day or every other day or whatever. Go see what the modifications are in that forum and then sign up for it. Make your first post. Say, hey, I'm looking at potentially buying this type of car. What do you guys think, or what are your guys' suggestions? And you'll always get the people that like obviously
look at all the other threads.
Yeah, buy this fucking crazy ass model that's like $10,000 more. Yeah, no, you you'll get a couple of those, but then you'll get like the real OGs that are part of that forum. You'll get a couple moderators that'll post because they're trying to get new people in. So they'll be like, yeah, look at this car. Or, yeah, that'll be great. Or if you're looking for a car, post the pictures of that car and the specs, and we'll tell you if it's good or not, right? And if you have a car that has a good, solid community behind it, even if there's not a lot of aftermarket support that you can Google, there are people on those forums custom fabbing shit for really good prices. Like,
Yeah.
one of the things I found for E36 before it kind of started blowing up back in 2014 uh, was rear subframe reinforcement plates.
Yeah.
That wasn't really readily available. Like,
Right.
there wasn't a lot of that around. And some dude, I mean, they're just plates. Some
Yeah.
dude on E36 Tech, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but some dude on E36 Tech was like, I got a CNC machine. I'll cut up a bunch of these, $12 a pop, and was selling them like hotcakes, right?
Yeah.
So the forum, the community behind the car will either get you an understanding of what you're getting into with the car or provide you with aftermarket parts that aren't readily available on sites. And
Yeah.
you can kind of expand on, yeah, I do want this car because there is a lot of support. Right?
Yeah, I think Reddit sort of replaced all of that, right? There's still certain forums
Yeah.
around the big names, like Evo still has Evolution M is a little
Yeah.
bit live still, but Reddit, you have every car as its own thread. And then within that thread, even though like you said, the plate weren't available, but now you have someone like Prjct who creates just
Yeah.
about everything under the sun. A Drift HQ, Condor, they have these pieces because they've modernized the approach of
Well,
creating stuff.
what's funny is that a lot of those companies like Garagistic started as one of those guys
Yeah.
selling stuff on the forum. He
And
just
realized he
started
could
making
monetize
stuff
bigger. Yeah.
and it started selling and selling, and then he made a company, right?
Yeah.
I think also similarly, a Condor Speed Shop, same kind of fucking thing happened. So yeah, again, whether it's Reddit or going to a forum or finding, just Google it. There's
Just
going to
look
be a
for
forum
support.
available, right?
I think that's the thing is like some of these are just broader terms. They do talk about community support in
They
the
do
middle of
a little
video.
bit.
So, but it almost seems like the variables, there's too many variables, but there's some umbrella variables, which instead of our aftermarket support, it's more so just general support. Is this something that you can get parts for, that you can talk to people are like-minded and willing to help? And is it something that your vision, like you have a big vision for the E36, like if you've got a big vision, is that the car that's going to match the vision in the end? And I think
Yeah.
that's where the genre kind of steps in a little bit too, which we've talked about in I think one of the first few episodes, which is pick the platform. Are you trying to just have a sick car that you drive to car meets? Are you trying to go to the track and you want to corner as hard as possible? Do you want the challenge of having a rear-wheel drive car and hitting the corners perfectly? Are you trying to drift? Are you trying to do this? And I think the interesting thing part about that is, again, too many variables, right? You can be a person who wants to do all that stuff, but you have no budget. So you can't necessarily get the best drift platform. You could probably find something super clapped out that you're going to have to work on really hard, but it's going to be hard to do that if you don't have like a $5,000 budget isn't very big budget these
It's
days.
not. The real thing so again, petty with the genre, right? If somebody is getting into buying their first project car, right? And they're looking at doing something other than just building the car. Like, you want to go take corners, or you want to drift, you want to do time attack, right? Or you want to do an X series, whatever that may be. Buying a project car and not knowing how to work on it and then building it and then doing that shit is really dangerous.
Yeah, and actually, I'll say this as a piggyback, because I was just thinking about it, the way you explained it. I honestly don't think you should buy your project car based on the genre. And here's why. Drifting especially, that is the biggest torture you can place on a vehicle. That's on everything, not just the engine, because like time attack, I'd say most of that's going to be on the engine heating up and you're just ripping as fast as you can, a little bit on the suspension and drivetrain. But drifting, high heat on the engine, high heat on the rear tires, high heat throughout the entire system.
No, it's
so you're gonna that is the epitome of the f it up right there. It's like if you want to buy a budget drift car and hope and think that you're going to have enough money for aftermarket stuff, you're wild if you don't have a budget.
Yeah, you're about to be in a rude awakening
real fast
sector.
Yeah.
But more so, it's when you do that, right? Like, if let's say you do a drift, you want a drift car, you want to do a drift build, right? And this is your first project car, you've never drifted, you're building your car to drift. You will never learn to drift because, one, that car will always be broken. Case in point, John's E36. Like, you're trying to build it and you just don't have the knowledge to get it to work.
If you don't have a team.
Yeah, properly, right? Two, the car becomes very dangerous because of the mods you put on without knowing the tolerances, whether that mod should be on, how it changes the dynamic of the vehicle. So you're constantly changing the vehicle while trying to learn to drift.
Yeah.
That those two don't go hand in hand. So if you are looking at doing any of those things competitively, well, not even competitively, just for fun.
Just grassroots,
if you're looking to drift, to time attack, to extra, whatever it may be that is actually going to a track and doing this stuff, buy your car, learn to do it first. Fuck that car up, learning how to do it.
Yeah.
Then your next car can be the quote unquote project car that you now start modifying based off of your driving ability and your driving skill and what you prefer from a drive, right? So like, if you've never done, and I did this over at Adams when I first started driving and kind of doing time attacks. And I did a couple of time attacks. I did one season and it was a lot of fun. And I want to start doing it again. But what I realized is that when I took my stock E36 to do this, it fucking performed terribly. But during those driving sessions, I started to realize what needed to be modified based off of my type of driving. So I'm a very aggressive driver coming into a corner. I'm not really aggressive out of the apex, but coming into the corner, I'm very, very aggressive. So one, I needed to bump up the suspension on the front end of the car. I needed to have better brakes on the front end of the car. I needed to have better sway bars on the front end of the car so that when I came into that corner, my car's not dipping and I'm not going to oversteer, right? That was my type of driving. That's how I did it. So I modified my car and I decreased my time around the laps tremendously just by doing those little mods, right? So understanding how you're driving and how you drive and getting used to going around, the track with just a stock car is going to benefit not only the way that you mod your car, but you'll be able to mod your car based off of what is necessary rather than what you think is necessary because this is what everybody does, right? So I don't agree with the genre at all.
Yeah, I mean, so I think I would say it's important to know what your destination is going to be. Just like you have a destination for the E36 as like a show car that has a modern but still OEM look. Similarly, what you want to use the car for is important, but I guess it shouldn't be number one. It shouldn't be your first thought. It should be something that's like, at some point, especially when you're young, at some point, I would like to do this with a vehicle. For me, I've always liked all of it, right? But I'm at a point right now, which I recently heard on one of Adam LZ's videos. He was like, do not learn how to drift with an angle kit. Do not learn to drift with a setup vehicle. So if you've already got drifting in mind, your goal should be a strong vehicle backed by the community support saying that this is a vehicle that can take the beating. And two, power. You need enough power to be able to go sideways. And there's like a full range of what that is. And then to your point, it's getting the car that works, that for the most part, you hope is not going to break right away, and then go do it. And then once you do it, you know what you need to do next, which if you're able to save budget, if you've got enough budget to be able to buy a car and then have a little bit left over to buy parts, I mean, more power to you. But then you have that ability to take that and budget that for what the next parts will be, which usually is going to be suspension first. It's going to be some tires. It's going to be some engine parts to give it a little bit more power and stuff like that. So I almost feel like that's another interesting video too, where it's like going through the genres of project cars and sort of creating a sequence, right? Like, if you're starting out super young, here's a great way to start this. I honestly think time attack is probably a great way to start in a motorsport sense. And if you look at any of the other pro level drivers, I believe most of them started out in random things. Like Adam LZ was a freaking BMX biker, and then he tried something else, and then he got into drifting, and he's a freaking pro. He just podiumed at Long Beach. And then you've got his, I believe it's his wife, Colette, who started Monster Jam. Like she was in a big old monster truck, but she learned how to, use a vehicle in weird ways, and then hopped in a drift car, and it was like next to, as if she's been doing it forever.
Transition.
So at the end of the day, the biggest takeaway is seat time and picking the car that we believe, right, that the first car that you should get should be one that's going to run and is going to be reliable for you to do some of the things that you wanted.
Yeah. And I want to kind of add to that and the understanding of what your first car should be, right? Your first project car. A lot of people, and I was guilty of this, right? With the Eclipse, a lot of people will buy a car and say, I want to mod the fuck out of this car. Right. And they have these power goals. They have what they, what it is going to eventually look like, things like that. And there are very, very few people that buy their first project car and know how to wrench.
That was going to be the next point that I brought up.
Very few people know how to do that. So even if you like, I had a bunch of tools. I had my dad's tools. Like I could do everything, right?
Yeah.
Tool wise, I could do everything. I didn't have the knowledge of working on a car. And so what I would say is that when you're buying your first project car, right, really buying something that you want to wrench on, buy something that you do the basic maintenance for and learn how to do the basic maintenance for, changing brakes, changing spark plugs, changing spark wires, doing the timing, doing an alignment if you can go that far, changing out sensors, doing all of those small maintenance type. It doesn't add power, it doesn't make the car cooler, it doesn't do anything. You can do stuff here and there, but like doing those basic things, learning how to do that first gives you two things. One, it gives you wrench time and you start to understand, I can't just crush this out and break a bolt, right? Because if you break one, it's easier to replace on one of those smaller components than, I don't know, breaking a head stud into a block. And you're like, how do I get this out? Which I've done. It gives you that. And then it also starts to give you the knowledge and understanding of how cars actually work. Because when you break it down, they're very simple. They haven't changed in 100 years, right? The basic dynamic. You get
some of
air,
them just have more stuff
fuel,
on it.
You compress it.
Yeah.
Bang, explode, piston goes down, power, right?
Wheels turn.
Basic shit.
Yeah.
But how that happens has changed drastically over the last 100 years. We went from carburetors to fuel injection. We have ECUs now. We have a lot of different components that will monitor what's happening in the engine and adjust for that.
Yeah, fuel delivery.
Power. And if you don't understand how that works, you're going to absolutely fuck your car up and it won't drive. And now you have a $3,000 paperweight, right?
Yeah.
So getting the basic maintenance, really mastering that will get you
closer,
a baseline of understanding the car. And then when you do modify it, you know what you're doing. At least you understand what you need to do. Yeah. And you might not know how to put the part on, but you won't fuck the car up by buying something that shouldn't be there. Like getting 60-pound injectors on an NA car for no reason. And now you're just dumping fuel. It's like, I don't need those big ass injectors.
I feel like that's also a huge point to like for those listening who are part of the community and see the new people coming in. I wish more people were willing to share their experience and share their recommendations and not constantly be pointing towards, this thread did that, because like I can just imagine a first time person coming in. I've seen it a couple times on the Evo threads, but saying, I'm getting this car. What things should I do? And it's like, one person could be like, well, if you're asking that question, you shouldn't touch a car. No, that's not true. It's more so like,
use the search bar.
Yeah. Good luck with that. The number of different, like, it'll probably just get marketed to by all the different places. But it's like, start with the basic maintenance and then, do coilovers or do some of these things like the air intake, a bolt-on exhaust, or something that, is going to give you an entry point, because that was like one of the things that it popped out was a quote that was, be honest with your skill set, which is exactly what we're talking about. And then the question that we would ask is like, should your first project car be easy to learn on, or should it challenge you? And there's probably a happy medium between those two, because if you've never touched a car, that shouldn't stop you from getting a project car. But
Mm-hmm.
if you've never touched a car, you should make sure you get one that the community has said is easy to wrench. An
Yeah, you
E36,
should feel comfortable with it.
yeah, 6 super easy to wrench. 240SX, I'm pretty sure is easy to wrench, but it might be a little more complicated.
Yeah, I would. So I have such a love hate, or I'm conflicted internally about what you just said. Um, about
Easy
the
to work on.
when somebody posts something, right, and you just wish the community would answer it. Uh, one on one side, yes, I do wish the community would be more supportive about it, and there's people out there that are, right, depending on which car community you're part of. In the E36 community, it kind of goes up and down depending on the forum you're on. Beamer forums, you're going to get flamed. Any of the Reddit stuff, you might be okay. But as in that sector, yeah, I wish the people would be a lot more supportive. As a moderator, I used to be a moderator on E36 Tech. I used to be an admin for the E36 SoCal parts page, which had over 1 million members at one point. E36 Tech had, I think, a couple 100,000. It gets absolutely fucking annoying when every post is that.
Yeah, I can hear
and that. When you are trying to run a forum, especially in a forum base, if you're trying to run a forum and people are looking up and trying to join your forum and all they see is just, what should I do to my car? What should I do to my car?
Yeah.
They don't sign up. They don't contribute. You don't get more members. It really flushes out the community. And then that site dies. And that's what happened to E36 Tech. We were a really good forum-based site, and the new admin for it came in and was like, I'm opening the post up to everybody because, we need to have more members. And I was like, we're doing pretty good. I don't think we need to really do this, but he did it anyway. And we got flooded with, I'm looking at buying an E36. What do you guys think I should get? And we were answering them at the beginning like, oh, well, if you are new to it, get 325 or 328. If not, and buy an M3. To buy an M3, right? Get a 95 if you want to work on it easier. Get a 96 through 99 if you want to deal with OBD2. And what are the differences? And they start asking very simple questions. What are the differences between the 95 and then the 96 through 99? Oh, well, one's an S50 motor, it's 3 liter. The other one's a 3.2 liter S52.
Yeah.
Oh, why is there a difference in the 2 and the 0? It starts to get to that mundane.
Yeah, I mean, you open up the floodgates of answering a question, and then instead of using so I guess that's the caveat, right? I think that it's important to be open to hearing the question of what should I do first?
Yeah.
But once you start getting into the stuff where it's like, we're modern human beings. There is this thing called Google. And what just sparked in my mind is you talked about wanting to build a knowledge base. Maybe that's one of our first things that we should try to scheme on, which is a knowledge base that combines the awesomeness of a forum like Reddit or the old school forums, but also gives you the opportunity to ask that question and let a GPT style use the knowledge that's in those bases to generate an answer and hopefully have some consistency, which is and that's the other problem too, is everybody has their opinion, but you can at least aggregate and create the most popular opinion to populate you should do this,
you should. I mean, that's something that definitely is way down the line, but it's one of the frustrations that I've had, at least for myself, when I'm looking for information, right? And I'm pretty good at researching things. It's my job. What I'm supposed to do for my job. So it kind of transfers over into doing things for cars. There's just, to your point, there's so much information on the internet of people's opinions.
Yeah.
And not factual things that it's hard to, especially if you're not used to searching for things or kind of sifting through information. It's hard to sift through it and find what is accurate information versus somebody theorizing that there's, I've literally had people like, oh yeah, no, you should do this on a forum. And I'm reading it as a moderator or whatever. I'm like, this won't work.
This doesn't compute.
Theoretically, sure, but in a real world application, this is never going to work, right? The power to weight ratio or the power to the drive shaft or whatever, it's going to snap it like a toothpick.
Yep.
And I'll come on as a moderator and be like, hey, have you done this? Oh no, I was just thinking out loud. Like, what? No, you're giving advice to somebody that's going to spend a fuck ton of money to do this because they think you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're just guessing.
Yeah.
Like, that's not okay.
I mean, that's a combination too there of doing your own research even when you get an answer from somebody, and that's what the problem with the world all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes from cars, politics to the new thickest conspiracy theory out today. I think to round this one off, I think there's an important understanding to be had about the community support. I think they said look for community support, right? I think the next layer there is don't rely only on the community, or don't take advantage of the community, I guess is the best way to put it. Because what you described before is somebody came in and all of a sudden they were trying to use another person as just an encyclopedia with unsolicited encyclopedia, right?
Yeah.
And I do think there is a little bit of a difference, right? Years ago, it was very different. Google was new. People were still getting used to this idea that you can hop online and find anything. And then even today, people either forget it or they don't trust the information that they find because, like you said, you run into shit where you're like, no, that's not right. But moving forward, it's like it's going to be important for us to find a good common ground, or else we're going to lose this. We're going to lose this awesome thing called modifying cars, because the more the community can stay like together in this ecosystem, the more of a voice we have to keep doing it, and we don't get shut down like states like California. But to sort of go towards an ending of this episode, there's two quotes that kind of work perfectly together, and it's a great way to end this, which is once you've figured all this out, once you know what you want and you're going to try and go and get it, this is super important. I think it is, at least. Don't get starry-eyed before you get there, and you got to be willing to walk away. Perfect example is my Evo 9. It's mostly good, as far as I can tell. That engine light keeps kind of popping on every once in a while, especially if it's been sitting for a long time. Sometimes I'm thinking maybe because it's sitting, the battery voltage tripped something, but I've run the codes, and a couple times it's been the intake side camshaft. So there could be some timing issues, and it has had some weird low rumbly idle here and there. So like, I got starry-eyed. It's my dream car, and it was the only one that seemed to be at a good price. I went and grabbed it. I should have walked away from that.
I don't.
Jury's out.
For your Evo, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you did pretty good with it, just because Evos are getting old.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to find one that's completely clean, and if you do, it's going to cost you a arm and a leg to get it.
Yeah.
Right? I think you did really well with the Evo. You did go in starry-eyed. You did
100%. I drove a long distance too. Once I got there, I was like, I'm not leaving without this.
Shot from the hip for it, and you came out okay with it.
I did also, as a point of reference, I did also start with two others, and one of them actually did run my credit, which I have to go back and somehow get that off of my score, and those fell through. So this was my third one technically, and I did walk away from one other.
Yeah, so you did do a walk away. But you got lucky because you got starry-eyed and you bought it anyway. And you can't get lucky. And for them, I want to say 60% of the time, buying a project car, buying a used car, you go in with the understanding that there's going to be things wrong. Small things, right?
Yep.
When you are looking at getting a project car, I think really the biggest things that you need to look for, or what you should consider, is finding things that are really problematic, right? So when you do go to look for your first project car, it's not just researching the cars. Research what problems cars that old could have, right? In the area, like rust. Look for, blown items, right? Hey, when you drive it, you hear like a really bad rattle, and it's like, is something hooked up or is it not hooked up?
Yeah.
Like, is that going to rip off? Because that could be an indication that, like a strut housing is ripping off and they're trying to get rid of it, and they might have JB welded it together and now it's starting to come off, right? Look for, look at the wiring harness. Make sure that the wiring harness looks not clean. If there's breaks or kinks, like, that's going to be a fucking nightmare.
Or if there's just like stuff that doesn't look like it should be there.
It should be there.
OEM, like, sometimes old cars have weird OEM wiring where it's not wrapped nicely. So you might think it's aftermarket, but you can tell. Usually it's like, if it's a bundle of wires and it's very cleanly tight, that's probably OEM. But if it looks like a bunch of random loose wires and it doesn't look
The
like the
way
rest of the wires,
the way that I actually determine if it's OEM or if it's not OEM wiring is I look at the wires, and if they look like they're from the fucking 80s, that's OEM. If
yeah,
it looks like early thousands, like wire, like they're bright colors, like they
yeah,
have, that's not OEM. Like OEM has like these dull fucking
yeah,
brown spirals through them all the time. Like it looks like that shit is old as hell.
yeah.
Every car, even the newer ones. Like
Trust
I
me.
did this for in Haley's car, and she has a 2017 Mazda 5 or whatever MX-5. What I don't whatever which the
Yeah,
an SUV. And I was adjusting some of the wiring for her because her display for her radio was off or her head unit was off, and I was looking at some of the wiring. Even that wiring looked like it was from the 80s.
yeah.
I was like,
It's like they
that
just keep reusing old car
yeah,
wiring.
they got like a manufacturer that they all use that just like has not changed their color
Loads of
base
wire. Yeah.
since the 80s. So
Well,
that's
there is a standardization to that stuff too, so they probably just haven't refreshed like
yeah.
certain colors they
So
use.
look for that. Look for 80s wiring. You know it's fucking it's
It's legit.
OEM, right?
It's
If it's
legit.
bright colored wires, that shit is aftermarket.
Yeah. I think it's really just that. It's like when you go to look at a car, don't fall in love before you get to drive it, and then
Mm-hmm.
be honest with yourself, because really it goes back to some of the tenets that were presented, right? If you have a skill set for working on cars, like let's say this is your first project car, but you had the opportunity to work on other people's cars or friends' cars, or maybe you come from a family of gearheads, then you can deal with problems. You can deal with something like some of the cars they looked at, like the shaky engine, or like it runs fine, but it obviously has a little bit of a rough situation. Maybe you're good enough to handle something
Yeah.
like that. But if you aren't, like, just because it's the car you really, 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 really want for a really, really good price. The other quote down here is, "There's a reason it's $1,000." Right?
Yeah.
If you run into one that's like, yes, way under budget, I'm going to be able to put some parts into this. There's a reason for that.
There's a reason for that.
They're trying to get rid.
This is what I tell people who are buying project cars when they've asked me like, hey, what should I look for? I always tell them when you go to buy a car, don't go to that car and test drive that car with the intent of buying it.
Yeah.
Go there with
Rule
the
it out.
intent of not buying it and
Yeah.
have the car impress you so much that you buy it. The car has to impress you to buy it. Like almost like you're the girl and the car's the guy and it's got a fucking peacock for you to like get you to want to be in it. Go with the intent of not buying, have the car impress you so much that you do buy it. That's a great rule of thumb. At least for me, that's what I kind of did.
Yeah.
And that's what I did with the E36. I wasn't intending on it. Like it was way underpriced for where that car was as far as how clean it was at the time. And I was like, there's something fucking wrong with this car. And I went with the intent of not buying it. I drove it around and I was like, I need to buy this car right now. Like,
Yeah. The parallel that I have is we bought a house in Carlsbad, and before we actually picked the one, we went down to the San Diego area, and my sights were on much cheaper properties that would have been a settle for us. Like we're settling for an area, or we're settling for the size or the type, like townhouse versus a detached. And my intent going down there was not to, somehow fall in love with the cheaper house. It was to go down there and rule it out. So when you're going to look at a legitimate project car based on the pictures you're looking at it on Marketplace or wherever it is, if it looks somewhat questionable, rule it out. Don't go to buy it.
Rule it out. Remember, when you're buying a car, you're not asking for the person who's selling the car's approval. You're the one with the power. You have the money. They're trying to sell you a good. Don't feel bad that you're not going to buy their car. Don't think that you have to buy the car because they're selling it and they chose you to sell the car to. Don't do that. That's not how that works.
And that's the perfect way to end it. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're new, consider joining the crew. By becoming a subscriber, you're not only going to get weekly content here with Prjct.Pod, you'll also get a variety of content, whether it's with my Evo 9 MR, my 95 BMW M3 I'm trying to build for drift, or my Toyota Tundra that's really just my truck money pit. And then, of course, soon enough, we will be in Southern California where I'll get to join Justin and start working on his E36 Project Reanimate. And then as time goes on, we're always going to be adding more cars to the fleet or trying to do giveaways. We have a first giveaway, which is the other thing you'll get when you become a subscriber. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we're going to give away a set of Icon wrenches from Harbor Freight, as well as a Daytona jack and jack stands. All we have to do is hit 1,000 subscribers. And that, I mean, to be honest, I think we might just try to hit 500 at this point. So rule change. And if you're not new, you know exactly what to do. Hit the like button, leave a comment, share this video. Those are the ways that help grow the crew. And until the next one, I'll see you later, crew. And go spend some money on your money pit.
I think I got a vendetta. Oh, now they call me, I seen them. All of those times getting severed. I told them all I get let up. They get not tired of me never. Give me a shot and I swear I shoot like Berettas.